Hi class, my name is Adrian Jimenez, and the topic I'm presenting today is water pollution. So I'm going to just explain my essay. So the topic I chose to write in my final project is one of the biggest concerns that we should be worried about today. The topic that I've chosen, obviously, is water pollution. Water pollution, in my opinion, is one of the biggest issues we are facing today because of how pollution in general can affect us all together. Water pollution has to do with the polluting of water that could be in the form of trash being dumped in lakes, rivers, streams, to mining, and how, if not cleaned up properly, will lead to water contamination. Once our water is contaminated, we are unable to use that water because using that contaminated water, can lead to disease or cancer. In this paper, I will be discussing what water pollution is and how it is a violation of federal law, as well as being able to persuade how this is one of the biggest issues facing our country, and our call to action on what we should do to stop pollution of water. As I said in the introduction, water pollution is the polluting of our water supply from pollutants of trash and chemicals that aren't disposed of properly, and making their way into the body of water like lakes, rivers, oceans, streams, aquifers, and groundwater. When trash and other chemicals reach a body of water, it takes time for the compound to get dissolved, and when it does get dissolved, those particles get mixed with the body of water, making it that much difficult to detect. Once those particles are unable to detect, it won't be a matter of time until that water is being used, and someone or something will feel the effect of those particles, and this is especially dangerous in our freshwater supply. We need our freshwater supply in order to survive, as well as for communities to flourish. According to an article by the Natural Resources Defense Council, more commonly known as the NRDC, the article states, clean and plentiful water provides a foundation for prosperous communities. We rely on clean water to survive, yet right now we are heading towards a water crisis. Changing climate patterns are threatening lakes and rivers, and key sources that we tap for drinking water are being withdrawn or tainted with pollution. Yet, when a body of water is being polluted by companies and people alike, this is a violation of federal law. And the law that is being violated is known as the Clean Water Act of 1972. The Clean Water Act actually dates back further than 24 years earlier, when the first law was passed to address water pollution, and that law that would make the way for the Clean Water Act was known as the Federal Water Pollution Control Act of 1948, where this law set standards on regulating the quality of water, regulating the quality control of our water. It wouldn't be until 1972 when this law would see drastic changes to established regulations, and this gave the United States Environmental Protection Agency full authority to implement programs to control the quality of our water, and it wasn't until 1972 that these amendments were implemented. So according to an article by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the Clean Water Act of 1972 laid out 6 amendments, and they are as followed. The first one established a basic structure for regulating pollutant discharges into the waters of the United States. The second one gave EPA the authority to implement pollution control programs such as setting wastewater standards for industry. Number 3, maintained existing requirements to set water quality standards for all contaminants in surface waters. Number 4, made it unlawful for any person to discharge any pollutant from a point source into navigable waters unless a permit was obtained under its provisions. Number 5, funded the construction of sewage treatment plants under the Construction Grants Program. And the last one, number 6, recognized the need for planning to address the critical problems posed by non-point pore solutions. After seeing information from the NRDC as well as the EPA, you can see that when people or industries pollute our water supply, they are violating the Clean Air Act, and that is a federal crime, meaning that people who are in violation of this act will face prison time as well as a fine. When a body of water does get polluted, this creates long and short-term effects on the environment. Some of the long-term effects on the environment include contamination of the soil, meaning that if the body of water is polluted, this will also pollute the local soil surrounding the body of water. Another long-term affecting the environment is contamination of local aquatic life, like fish, sea plants. And this is a big deal because as humans, we eat almost anything, and that includes seafood. And if these fish are contaminated with pollutants, this will create a panic to where it will be unsafe to eat the fish. The last long-term effect that water pollution has on the environment is that it will take a long time before that body of water will be back to where it should be, to where it's no longer contaminated. Water pollution also causes short-term effects as well, but they aren't as important as the long-term effects because short-term effects have the ability for the environment to heal itself in a short period of time. But I would say the biggest effect it has on the environment that I did not list before is the ability for the pollutants to travel, meaning that if one body of water is polluted and contaminated, it won't take long before other local bodies of water are contaminated by the pollution. Water pollution is one of the biggest issues we are facing today because of how much an impact this has on us. I believe this to be an important topic because we are talking about the pollution of our water, where we need water to survive, as well as it impacting our food supply. Society as a whole needs to understand the seriousness of this issue, because if people don't begin to understand how big of an issue this really is, by the time people start to figure this out, it will be too late to do anything about it. What I mean by this is that when people start to realize that something is wrong, by the time they want to take action, it'll be too late, to the point where there's nothing we can do to undo the mess that we did. Water pollution affects us in so many ways, but there are two ways that water pollution affects us in a big way. As I stated earlier, one of the biggest ways that water pollution affects us is the contamination of our water supply. Once our water supply is contaminated with the pollutants, this means that our water supply is unusable, meaning that we would have to find another source to get our fresh water supply. In reality, there isn't a whole lot of sources left to get our fresh water. Lakes are being overdrawn, as well as our aquifers, because of the amount of water that is needed in order to meet the demands of the world. Not a whole lot of people know this, but our freshwater aquifers are almost depleted because of the demand for fresh water as being distributed around the world. And even then, if the water being pumped out of the ground is contaminated, then the water is no longer can be used, making it that much more difficult. Water pollution does have an effect on our environment, as well as in a number of ways. As stated earlier, water pollution also pollutes the local soil as well, meaning that once it's polluted, local plant life and animal life will also be in danger, and these plants need the soil and water in order to survive. And if either of them is polluted, then that means that the surrounding vegetation will no longer survive and be able to do what it's meant to do. This could also go on and on. The list could go on and on, but the biggest long-term effect that the water pollution has on the environment is the ability of the pollutants to travel between different bodies of water. And once it does that, the water pollution will be spread throughout the world and have a lasting effect on our water supply. Whether it's meat, fish, fruits, vegetables, our food supply is connected to our water supply because of how every living thing on this planet needs water to survive. And when the water is polluted, these pollutant particles will get into our food supply one way or another. Once we start to eat, even if we don't feel it right away, we will start to get sick, and eventually we eat enough of this, we will catch some sort of disease, cancer, or even people will start to die. That being said, I recommend a call to action in order to bring water pollution to a halt, because this will benefit everyone in the long run. In order for society to be aware of this issue, it all starts with us. I recommend people just start explaining. Go on Twitter, Facebook, forums, and other sources to reach out to people and explain what water pollution can do to us. Because if we start to explain what it can do to the environment first, people aren't going to have that much of an interest until it's too late. Once society is becoming more and more aware of the issue, the next step is taking this up to our local Congress representative, because they are the ones who have the ability to do something about it. And if it takes a while to actually do something about it, they are the ones who have the power to do so. I know that looks like an impossible thing to do, but once more and more people begin to realize how big of an issue this really is, things will change and new policies will take effect. The current policies are in place, are in effect right now, aren't bad at all, but these policies and regulations don't have any effect on corporations. if someone was to violate the Clean Water Act, they would get prison time as well as a fine. But when one of these corporations violates the Clean Water Act, they get a slap on the wrist, and all they get is a fine. What should really happen is that the people that are running these corporations should also serve prison time, because they will keep on running their operations the same, but this time they will make sure they don't get caught in the act. There should be more policies implemented, so these people that are running these corporations should serve prison time, and there shouldn't be any bail set for them in order to get out. One of the policies that should be implemented is for a bigger fine to these corporations, because they make millions of dollars in a month, and a fine is nothing to them. But an even bigger fine is a way to get their attention, as well as a chance to change their operations so that they comply with the regulations that are in place. Another policy, like I said, should be people serve longer prison sentences, so that they get the idea that they will never violate the law again. And this law should be applied to the people running these corporations as well, because it seems as though they're the ones serve. It seems as though they should be the ones serving as well. Instead of getting a slap on the wrist. I wouldn't say that there's anything wrong with the current policies that are in play, but I just don't believe they are as effective as they should be. I just believe that we can do more to protect our water supply from getting contaminated. So with stricter policies in place, we will be able to protect our water supply as well as our food supply all at the same time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, conducts my presentation of water contamination.